Another year, more AAA slop from Western video game developers.
Father would never.
I'm your daddy now, Shark. That goes for all of you. I'm your daddy.
In Rocksteady's latest game in the Arkham franchise, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is the game that nobody wanted, no one was excited for, and is even worse than you could have ever expected. In fact, I don't really even know how to start off this review because I genuinely hate this game, guys. I have literally nothing positive to say about it whatsoever, so it's hard to pinpoint where exactly I want to begin when it comes to this absolute abomination of modern video game filth. And it's really tough to even think about everything negative I have to say about this game, because throughout my 13-hour playthrough, I don't think I had fun once the entire time. I was pretty miserable from start to finish. There's no high point in this game whatsoever. The dialogue, the story, the combat, the mission structure, the world design, the upgrade system, the loot mechanics, there is nothing redeeming about this game whatsoever, and I absolutely hate everything this game represents in the current video game landscape. Like, before we even get into this though, like, explain to me how Rocksteady worked on this game for basically a decade and it somehow looks worse than their previous game that they released 9 years ago in 2015. You know, that takes true talent to have the exact same engine and development studio work on a game 10 years apart and have the one that comes out 10 years later look worse in every single way imaginable. But I think it's a great analogy for how Suicide Squad relates to the other Arkham games, because believe it or not, this game is actually an entry in the Batman Arkham franchise, but Suicide Squad, 10 years removed from the other Arkham games, is worse in every single way imaginable. And it just shows you the massive amount of decay and decline that the AAA gaming industry in terms of Western developers has seen in recent times. So I think it really is poetic in a sense, because it's a perfect reflection of not only the current state of Rocksteady, but also Western video game development as a whole. We are in a downward spiral right now, and the only reason gaming is even somewhat enjoyable in this day and age is because of Japanese developers for the most part. But I guess we'll go ahead and kick this review off with what I guess should be considered the most important part of a live service team-based third-person action looter shooter, and that of course is the gameplay.
This is where the fun begins.
No.
Worth it.
So let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. The gameplay of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is absolutely horrible, man. At no point in this game does it ever get fun. The third-person shooting feels incredibly generic. It feels like Rocksteady had no fucking idea what the hell they were doing when it came to crafting a third-person shooter. There you go. It actually runs pretty well, all things considered.
First, they're obvious your legs.
Bro, I'm aiming right at it. Thank you. The traversal mechanics can be okay, but the control scheme in this game is incredibly awkward and strange to learn, so that doesn't really help either. But you can say the movement's alright, but it's been done better in other games, and even in Rocksteady's own games, it's been done better before. This is a major downgrade in terms of traversal compared to games like Arkham Knight. But going back to the shooting mechanics, the shooting mechanics in this game don't feel good. It feels incredibly generic, it feels clunky, it feels like an afterthought. I think that's the best way I can put it. And overall, the main gameplay loop that you're going to encounter in this game is go to a destination, kill a wave of enemies, wait for another wave of enemies to appear, rinse and repeat. Well, the problem with this is your character in this game is incredibly weak from a health and shield perspective. You will die extremely quickly, just all the time. Like, constantly, you're on a, like, eternal quest to find shield drops in order order to make sure you don't die. It's very easy to die, and overall you never actually feel powerful whatsoever. So the problem with this is when you get into kind of like the repetitive nature of the combat, because essentially what you're forced to do is spam traverse around the environment over and over again, stopping every once in a while to get a few kills, and then go back to spam traversing over and over again, trying to find shield pickups to heal, pick off a couple more enemies, rinse and repeat. Now, where this game throws a wrench into the machine is some enemies have armor, and the only way to deal with an armored enemy in this game is not to shoot them. No, you have to get in close range and melee them. Now, the melee mechanic in this game is incredibly janky. There's no way to actually ensure the enemy you're trying to hit is going to be the one that you're actually going to hit once you use your melee attack. And also, given the nature of your low health in this game, you will die incredibly quickly and often if you go into a large crowd of enemies trying to break the shields of those enemies in order to actually be able to damage them, because nothing can damage them until you actually break the shield by conducting a melee. Now, this is where it gets even worse. So the only way to generate shield drops in this game is to shoot enemies repeatedly in the legs until a prompt appears over their head that you can go in and get a shield attack, which is basically a special type of melee where after you shoot them in the legs and they have the special prompt above their head, if you execute a melee attack on them, they will then drop about 1/3 of your shield worth of shield drops. And this gets incredibly fucking obnoxious, and you're constantly dying trying to go in and regenerate your shield because you're already low on health, and the enemies all cluster up together. It's a complete mess, man. And then you pair that with the fact that this game has one of the most obnoxious features that I do not fucking understand why open world games have in 2024 when this has never been a thing in the past, is there are mission boundaries in this game.
Come on, not now!
Cutting the cord. You had your chances.
So not only are you having to like spam traverse around the map, picking off enemies one by one, get in close, melee the enemy, shoot them in the legs repeatedly, melee them again, regen a little bit of your shield, rinse and repeat, but you're also having to keep a constant eye on the mini-map, because if you veer too far away from the objective, God forbid, I don't know, maybe to let your health regen before you try to go in and get another shield pickup or whatever it is, you have to keep a constant eye on your mini-map to make sure you're not crossing outside of the mission boundary, because the game has an auto fail mechanic if you dare to veer off the path too much, which is fucking obnoxious, man. It is 2024. Why the fuck can you not go more than 20 feet away from an objective in an open world game? It makes absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever, especially when traversal is so emphasized in this game to the degree that it is. But yeah, just to further, I guess, reiterate on how just boring and bland the gameplay experience of this game is, I guess included in the $100 version of this game, because I got it early in order to stream it, you get like these special weapons, and throughout the entire game I never actually got any weapons or equipment that were better than the stuff I got at the very beginning of my campaign playthrough. So at no point during the entirety of the campaign did I ever actually feel the need to switch up my equipment, because none of the stuff that was dropped for me was actually better than what I had starting out based on, I guess, my deluxe edition bonus items or whatever. So the game in that aspect was incredibly fucking boring, because there was no incentive for me to try new weapons or different equipment to maybe give me a different, I guess, play style. But no, nothing throughout the entire campaign scaled to my existing gear, which most other looter shooters do. If you have a certain level of gear, then anything that drops further is at least at that level or better in order to, you know, continuously reward you. But no, everything I got throughout the entire campaign was worse than what I already had, so I never even bothered changing my loadout whatsoever, because I literally would have been penalized for it. Jeez, man. Oh boy, a yellow item. It's probably horrible compared to what I have.
Has this been all my life of crime?
Yep, both are worse. But once I actually beat the game and started doing like some extra side activities and end game content, I started getting items that were better than what I had originally, and come to find out every single item in this game within a particular class is pretty much the exact same thing. Every single minigun, every single pistol, every single shotgun, every single sniper rifle feels, looks, and controls the exact fucking same. The only thing that changes is the number of damage attached to it and whatever affliction modifier that you can put on it, which even that's not unique to the guns, because you can go to Poison Ivy in the game, which, you know, Sweet Baby really did their work on her. We'll get to that later, trust me. But yeah, you can literally go and alter that. So there's no uniqueness to any of the weapons. It just feels like you're grinding for an arbitrary number that provides you with the exact same experience that every single weapon in that particular class has given you up until that point. You're just trying to get a little bit more damage out of it. So the sense of progression in a looter shooter is very important, and it's why games like Destiny and Borderlands do it so well, is because a lot of the guns in those games feel very unique. In Suicide Squad, that is not the case whatsoever. Every single gun looks, feels, and controls and basically acts the exact same way. There is zero fucking weapon variety in this game whatsoever, and you're basically punished for switching your gear if you're in my particular situation. So this game feels so fucking half-assed, man. It's so obvious they had no idea how to make this particular genre of game. Now, to make it even worse, the level up system in this game, at least for the first 30 levels of each character, is completely irrelevant, man. Like, I never felt more powerful leveling up. It never felt like I did more damage. It never made me feel like I was more effective in combat scenarios. Like, the level up mechanic was basically a wet pool noodle. It felt like absolutely nothing was changing as a result of me constantly leveling up and using particular characters in order to unlock the next ability or whatever. So the skill tree in this game is very reminiscent of Borderlands, but without any of the actual tangible benefits that you get from a Borderlands game. My gameplay experience and overall feel of the game did not change whatsoever from having 0 skills to all 30 skills unlocked at one time. So that is definitely an issue. Now, to the game's credit, and I didn't really delve too much into it because it looked like a basic, I guess, percentage modifier upgrade system. Once you get your first character to level 30, it actually unlocks the ability for you to upgrade your core stats, because up to that point, leveling up gives you perks that have 0 effect on your overall health, damage output, shield capacity, all of that stuff. It's like combat modifiers that have a reliance on this weird combo system, which makes no fucking sense. For a third-person shooter, it's a complete and total mess. But once you get one character to level 30, which means basically completing the campaign, that's when you actually start to feel more powerful. You're able to upgrade your health, your damage output, the amount of XP you earn, which makes no fucking sense why you can upgrade the amount of XP you earn, especially when it's the last unlock, which means all of your characters would already be max level at that point, so why would you need an XP boost? But anyway, that is beside the point. Once you actually beat the game and start doing the end game content, which is just grinding the same generic mission structures over and fucking over, by the way, you know, you can actually start modifying your stats and actually seeing improvements in those aspects. But at no point throughout the main campaign will you ever experience any of that, so it's pretty easy to overlook, because I have a feeling most people are not even going to bother finishing this dog shit story mode. So that's another negative in my opinion. The progression system in this game is too little, too late, and overall feels like it has 0 impact whatsoever, just like the equipment you're grinding for throughout the game itself. So not really well done in my personal opinion. So moving on to the next gameplay aspect, let's go ahead and talk about that mission structure. So if you are familiar with the open world third-person shooter mission structure, take the worst examples of that and slap it together and call it a campaign, and you have the main campaign and overall content of Suicide Squad. If you've ever played Just Cause 3, for example, and you know those car escort missions where you have a car that you have to guide from one point to the other, and basically along the way there's like waves of enemies that attack you in vehicles, helicopters, on foot, you name it, and you have to protect the vehicle and wipe out the waves of enemies before they damage the car irreparably. Well, that is literally about, I would say, 1/3 to about half of the missions in the main campaign of Suicide Squad. You will do the same exact mission structure over and over and over and over again, and they call that a main campaign. Like, it is a complete joke. Now, in addition to these escort missions, you will basically have a variety of multiplayer game modes set in a single-player open world setting, and it does not work whatsoever. The other main mission structure you're going to play is something along the lines of kill confirmed, where you'll have to kill enemies, pick up data that they drop. You can only carry so many pieces of data at a time. You have to bring it back to a central location, deposit the data, go back out, kill more people, pick up the data, rinse and repeat until eventually you've collected enough to where the truck moves to another location. You have to rush to that other location, rinse and repeat 2 to 3 more times. It sounds as boring as it actually is in reality. It absolutely sucks. And then the other main mission structure is something along the lines of domination, where you have 2 points on the map where enemies are spawning, and you have to prevent the enemies from being on those points for long enough for your like percentage bar to fill up and the objective to complete. That is literally the 3 main mission structures. You have the absolute worst fucking mission in any open world game, an escort mission, being the bulk of the main campaign, and on top of that you have some other multiplayer light PvE modes sprinkled in on top. There's no actual like set piece missions or anything cool that happens in any of the story missions aside from the occasional boss fight where, as the name suggests, you kill the Justice League. Now, before we get into the boss fights, let's go ahead and talk about one other major fucking issue with the gameplay in this game. There is literally only 4 types of enemies in this entire fucking game, man. The enemy variety in this game is non-existent. The same 4 enemies you see at the very beginning are going to be the exact same 4 enemies you're going to be killing for the rest of the game, even after you beat it. There is zero fucking variety in this shit whatsoever, and it is laughably bad at how just generic and bland the enemy types are in this game. Like, it is a complete and total fucking joke. They didn't even try with this shit. And just to give you guys an idea of the so-called variety they add later on, which is basically these stupid fucking modifiers, like take for example the Batman infused enemies. Brainiac has deployed Batman infused enemies. These combatants have active stealth camouflage, making them immune to suicide strikes and harder to detect at range. They will be briefly revealed when taking damage, but this does not remove their suicide strike immunity. Batman infused enemies will not show counter shot targets even when visible. Use your instincts to land counters. And no, the Batman infused enemies do not actually look like Batman. They're the same exact 4 character models you've seen throughout the entire game, but they're slightly less visible. Like, it is a complete and total joke, bro. They did not even fucking try whatsoever when it came to making interesting enemies and things to shoot at in a fucking third-person looter shooter. The main gameplay loop. Everything surrounding the main gameplay loop in this game feels completely half-assed and just completely amateur at best. There are so many other games in this genre that have done this exact same gameplay loop a million times better, so even if you like third-person looter shooters, this is one of the worst and most bland, generic examples of one I think I have ever seen in my time as a gamer. But let's go ahead and talk about the boss fights now, guys, because this is a fucking mess, dude. So the Flash boss fight is the first Justice League member you're gonna fight, and basically it relies on you using a counter mechanic, which is basically you shooting a projectile from your gun when an enemy has a moment of weakness when they're about to use a powerful attack, is basically the best way I can sum it up. And well, just like every other boss fight in this game. When you're fighting the Flash, you need to use your counter repeatedly until you charge a meter underneath his health bar, which when that is actually charged, you initiate a phase where you're actually able to damage him. So you're constantly having to manage this charge bar and use your attacks to damage him while you have like this period where he's not immune to your attacks. Now, where this gets obnoxious is he's the fucking Flash, so he's constantly moving around. He's almost impossible to keep track of. The movement in this game is very jank at best at times, and the gunplay itself is not very responsive or snappy or feels smooth whatsoever. So it's just a complete and total clusterfuck, and it almost feels like some of the boss encounters are complete and total RNG. And the boss fights last for about 5 to 10 to maybe 15 minutes depending on who you're fighting, which is way too long in my opinion for something like this. But overall, they're just not fun. They're a super grindy, slow, and meticulous process that never feels satisfying. It doesn't make any fucking sense how you're able to shoot the fucking Flash under any circumstances. I don't care what type of cape shit super tech you're using from the fucking boy genius that joined your team later down the line.
Hold the F-wording door! Is that the inner sanctum? You guys are allowed in the Justice League super secret hideout? Man, if you gave me 5 minutes in there, you'd have the world's authority on microtech and the Justice League at your service. And all my inventions. 大丈夫。お前じゃないよ。
But yeah, it's completely nonsensical. The whole premise of this game is fucking stupid, and the boss fights reflect that perfectly. So the Flash boss fight was absolutely miserable. It was not fun whatsoever, and by the time it was actually finished, I didn't ever want to fucking go through that again, which guess what? You get to do again later down the line, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. So the Flash boss fight, absolutely obnoxious, did not like it. Now the Green Lantern fight was slightly better. Instead of having to use your, I guess, counter on the Flash, this time you had to destroy Green Lantern's constructs, which depleted the bar underneath his health bar, which then opened him up to damage. So that made a little bit more sense this time around, but the process itself was still not fun, and I didn't really enjoy the fight whatsoever. It just felt like I was repeatedly going through the motions over and over again. It never actually felt challenging, and at times it actually felt kind of unfair just with how much shit he throws at you and how you basically cannot restore your health whatsoever in these boss fights. So that part was kind of annoying, but that fight was definitely better than the Flash's, but that's not really saying much. So next up is the Batman boss fight, and when I say this is a dumb boss fight, I mean this is just incredible, bro. Like, instead of actually fighting Batman, you fight a kaiju version of Batman, and it's just, it's absolutely ridiculous, man. It is so fucking stupid. You're just wondering, like, what in the fuck is going on here? It feels like you're fighting one of those massive enemies at the end of a, like, striker raid in Destiny 2. But yeah, basically you just spam shoot Batman's head while jumping over the occasional attack that's so fucking telegraphed that it's literally almost impossible to actually take damage in this fight. And then Batman will hurl these insta-kill projectiles at you that you have to shoot down before they approach you, which even then it's not really even a challenge. And overall the fight is just completely fucking hilarious. So I'll give them credit. It's the shortest of the boss fights, it's the easiest of the boss fights, and I guess it's the most creative, but at no point is it actually fun or does it make any fucking sense in the context of the story, because leading up to that point you use like the fear gas on Batman, and apparently what he fears most is being a massive fucking Batman monster. Like, it made no fucking sense, dude. But yeah, the Batman boss fight is absolutely hilarious, but again, not a good boss fight. So moving on from there, we go to the Superman boss fight, which this boss fight was way too long, man. This shit took me like 10 to 15 minutes to finish just because of how much health Superman has and the process of actually being able to damage him. I would assume this fight in co-op would be a lot easier and go a lot faster, but you know, I don't have any friends, so I had to play by myself. And even if I did have friends, I would never subject them to having to play Suicide Squad with me. So yeah, the Superman boss fight was absolutely fucking miserable. It was the worst fight in the game by and large, and I just hated every single minute of it. Once it was finally over, you know, it was like a weight was lifted from my shoulders, man. That was like one of the most miserable boss fights I have ever sat through. And yes, the idea of shooting Superman is as fucking retarded as it sounds. So yeah, especially when you consider what happens at that point in the story, it makes zero fucking sense whatsoever, guys. That's the best way I could put it. It is a complete and total joke. It's a horrible boss fight, and it is extremely anticlimactic as well, because once you kill Superman, his body just flops dead on the ground, and that's it. You don't really ever mention him again whatsoever. There's no like follow-up scene or anything. It's just, all right, he's dead, moving on. So for the final boss fight of the game, it's against Brainiac, or one of 13 iterations of him. So there's going to be 12 seasons of live service content that they're going to try to pump out for this dog shit game, which I doubt will ever materialize because this game is not going to sell well. But in order to get to the Brainiac fight after defeating Superman, you have to engage in a bunch of side activities, which are basically just rehashed campaign activities in order to earn an in-game currency in order to purchase a raid pass in order to go and fight that particular iteration of Brainiac. So once you get enough of these superhero shekels to buy your raid pass by doing the generic activities, you are then transported into an alternate reality of Metropolis where you go and challenge Brainiac. Now, once you're in this alternate dimension, in order to actually get to Brainiac, you have to do 2 more generic activities. So yeah, another escort mission, another data transfer mission, whatever it might be. So you get to do 2 more generic activities just for old time's sake. You have to do them within a 30-minute time period, and then you finally get to challenge Brainiac. Although, once you get to challenge Brainiac, you don't actually fight against Brainiac. You fight against a recycled version of the bosses you already faced. Now, the first iteration for me was the Flash. I don't know if that's true for everyone. So, of course, I got to refight the Flash in a more cancerous version, because in addition to fighting the Flash, there's 100 enemies at a time that he summons, and he spams attacks within a very small boss arena, and overall, it is absolutely miserable. I didn't want to ever have to fight the Flash again, but instead of actually having a dedicated Brainiac boss for you to fight, they literally just have Brainiac transform into a member of the Justice League that you already fought and call that the Brainiac boss fight. So even the final boss of this game, the amount of effort they put in is fucking non-existent, dude. Like, it really just shows you how little fucking thought or care went into making this absolute dog shit game. And overall, this game has one of the worst gameplay loops I have ever experienced in any third-person shooter that I have ever played, and there is nothing redeeming about this whatsoever. At no point in the gameplay was it ever fun. Did it ever feel good? Did you ever feel powerful? Did you ever feel rewarded or ever feel satisfied for going through all the bullshit you had to fucking slog through in this 13-hour campaign? So overall, man, I don't think I can stress it enough. The gameplay and overall gameplay loop of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League fucking sucks.
Hardly no.
Worth it.
Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the story of Suicide Squad, and yes, it's exactly as bad as you would expect it to be. This game is not only completely nonsensical, but has some of the most cringe, woke, and overall just disgusting dialogue I think I have ever heard from anything superhero related, and that is definitely a high bar of achievement in a world filled with shitty Disney Marvel movies. So just know what you're getting into here. This game is nothing like the Batman Arkham series, which had a much more dark and serious undertone while still maintaining charm to it from the actual comic book inspiration. This game has absolutely none of it. It is a complete fucking disgusting slop fest from none other than everyone's favorite diabetes fetus writing company or woke consulting firm, Sweet Baby Inc, because their disgusting fingerprints are all over this fucking story. But throughout the game, you're gonna have one thought in the back of your mind: can these people just shut the fuck up? because every single character in this game is fucking obnoxious, bro. There is not a singular good character in this entire game, and you just want them to shut the fuck up. Even characters like Batman, for example, who does like the voiceover throughout the city through the majority of the main campaign, they only have so many lines, which I understand the guy was dying of cancer who was recording the voice lines, but even Batman, who is like the only character that is standable to listen to in this entire fucking game, he gets obnoxious after a while because they just rehash the same 3 lines over and over again every minute or two, and it becomes completely obnoxious. So overall, man, I think the story and the writing of Suicide Squad is some of the worst in any modern video game that I've ever seen. So I'm gonna go ahead and play you guys a quick little montage of just some of the absolute cringe you will encounter while playing through this game, and just keep in mind, this probably is not even 10% of just the absolute dog shit writing courtesy of Sweet Baby Inc.
To my massive and disappointingly male fan base.
Father would never
I'm
allow-
your daddy now, Shark. That goes for all of you. I'm your daddy.
What did I tell you about playing dumbass double agents?
You're our daddy.
Goddamn right.
Hold the F-wording door! Is that the inner sanctum? You guys are allowed in the Justice League super secret hideout? Man, if you gave me 5 minutes in there, you'd have the world's authority on microtech and the Justice League at your service. And all my inventions. 大丈夫。お前じゃないよ。
Want to, you know?
Hardly, no!
Worth it. Oh, sorry, Deadshot. Are we interrupting your being strapped to a gurney?
Isn't Deadshot supposed to be white?
Aren't you supposed to be shutting your damn mouth?
Yeah, crowd, mate, what? That's right! That's right!
Every woman for herself!
He saved our lives, yet we ended his. As honorable warriors, we will show proper respect to this fallen hero by...
Show a little class, man. That... Holy shit. Congratulations.
Makes sense. The gods have cursed you in every other way.
He asked Command to use his words.
Someone is touching me.
Not me. Actually, it might be me.
I don't mind.
I thought you were a handle. Wait. What am I holding on to?
I swear I am going to kill all of you.
Sweetie, cool those jets. Just take a deep, calming breath, all right? Mama will get us out of this can.
No!
Yeah, right. You threads, boys. Real retro. I was thinking something more fashion forward.
If only there were enemies here. That would be a splash.
Snitches gets glitches.
Phew, I need a smoke.
I need more therapy.
And one line in particular I do want to highlight separately is this one, just to show you how absolutely fucking brain dead the people are who wrote this story.
Does it worry anyone else that the squad's weapons aren't legal in this country?
Yes, you heard that right. Does it bother anyone else that the Suicide Squad's weapons might not be legal in this country? Like, are you fucking shitting me? At this point in the story, there are aliens that have invaded and have literally turned demigods, aka the Justice League, into supervillains, and they're essentially killing anyone and everyone in order to terraform the Earth, exterminating the human race. But this motherfucker is worried about whether or not that the Suicide Squad's weapons and guns are legal under American gun laws. Like, you literally cannot make this shit up. This is blatant propaganda, and cringe lines like this are everywhere throughout this game, to the point where it just completely removes you out of the experience. And this makes games like Spider-Mid 2 and Peter Parker's rant about getting rid of guns and swapping them out for compliments look tame in comparison.
Less guns, more compliments.
You know, Sweet Baby really did their thing on this game, and it's no wonder that they're touting their involvement on their own website when it comes to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. But all that bullshit aside, the story that is here is completely stupid. It makes absolutely no sense. Again, I don't care what cape shit excuses they come up with. You will never convince me that you'd be able to shoot Superman to death with a fucking pistol. The entire premise of this game and the corresponding story is completely retarded. It makes absolutely no fucking sense, and it is just bare bones to say the least. You can tell that the story wasn't even an afterthought. This shit was literally shoehorned in the last like 2 months of development, it feels like. This entire game is built around the live service model more so than an actual coherent story and narrative experience, which I don't think anybody was expecting based off of everything we heard about this game going into launch, but somehow it's even worse than I was expecting. And overall, man, the story of this game is absolute dog shit. So let me just go ahead and walk you through a very brief summary, and if it sounds really simplistic, that's because it is. There is zero depth to the story whatsoever. It is a complete hollow shell of Rocksteady's other video games. But anyway, essentially what happens is Brainiac has invaded Earth. He's taken over the Justice League and turned them into evil superheroes with the task of terraforming the Earth in order to make a new version of his homeworld, which will kill all people in the process. Basically, think the plot of Man of Steel. That's pretty much what it is. And basically, the Suicide Squad is released from prison. They have bombs planted in their head, and they are tasked with bringing down the Justice League. Now, first up, you fight against the Flash, who you use some device that, you know, magically falls into your lap at one point in the story that can block his powers. So you go and kill him, but in the process of killing him, it opens an interdimensional warp or whatever the fuck and takes you to an alternate universe where you interact with a different version of Lex Luthor, who you help escape to your reality, and he gives you the means to kill Green Lantern. So you go and hunt down Green Lantern, which you eventually kill him. Then you have to figure out how to find Batman in order to find the means to kill Superman. So you hunt down Batman, locate the Batcave. He basically gasses you with fear gas. Harley Quinn, being a genius scientist, knows how to recalibrate the fear gas so that it starts to affect Batman, and you engage in a massive kaiju battle with, you know, Mega Batman. Just fucking incredible. You kill him, you discover the means to kill Superman, which is gold kryptonite. So you literally bedazzle yourself and hang a bunch of gold kryptonite all over your body to go and fight Superman. You shoot him to death, he falls to his death, and then it's time to go and kill Brainiac. So you have to grind a bunch of shitty open world activities in order to earn enough in-game super shekels in order to buy a raid pass in order to go and challenge one of the 13 different versions of Brainiac that exist across the different dimensions. So you travel to that particular dimension, you do 2 other shitty side activities under a 30-minute time limit, then you get to challenge Brainiac, which Brainiac is not even his own dedicated boss fight. You literally fight against a cloned version of one of the Justice League members you already killed, and in my case, and I think for everybody else, the first iteration of Brainiac is literally just a repeat of the Flash boss fight, which absolutely sucks. So once you defeat that version of Brainiac, you return to your reality. There's a small explosion on the Skull ship, and now you have to wait for the seasonal content to come out to figure out what happens next. That is literally the story of Suicide Squad, with a million boring, repetitive, and just chore simulation activities in between over the course of a 10 to 12 hour campaign length that no one, and I mean no one, is probably going to enjoy whatsoever. The story of this game is a complete and total fucking joke that no one should be taking seriously, and overall, this is a new low for the AAA video game industry in recent memory, at least in my mind. This is absolutely pathetic to see a studio like Rocksteady that used to pride itself on telling some of the most compelling superhero stories across all media formats, that includes movies, TV shows, and video games, just fall this far and resort to using Sweet Baby Inc in order to write one of the most incoherent, horrible, woke, and just downright boring and just nonsensical plot lines I think I've seen in modern video game history. So I guess that is kind of an achievement in and of itself, but overall, man, the story of this game is nothing short of just pure Sweet Baby slop. And I think a few prime examples of this really stand out. I mean, if you go to their website again, they say, we worked on script writing, banter, cutscenes, barks, and audio logs, etc. So basically, they were in charge of writing the script for this game, and overall, you can see their design choices all over this shit. You know, the social commentary, the anti-gun rhetoric, the anti-male rhetoric, every dude in this game is weak, stupid, or completely incompetent, and all the women have to constantly bail them out. The only superhero that's treated with any sort of fucking dignity whatsoever is Wonder Woman, and she's the only one that didn't get corrupted by Brainiac, of course, even though she doesn't really play a pivotal role in the game whatsoever. You know, the only touching moment you'll ever see when it comes to sending off one of these superheroes is when Wonder Woman herself dies, but it's just blatantly obvious. And then if you look into the actual, like, character descriptions that Sweet Baby Inc put into this game, you'll see, like, they basically imply that Green Lantern is a race traitor. They say that, you know, the Amazons and Wonder Woman achieved an ideal society by getting rid of toxic masculinity. I mean, it is a complete and total fucking joke. No matter where you look, what you listen to, this game is completely rotted to its fucking core from the cancerous touch of Sweet Baby Inc. And just to make it even worse, we all know about the Poison Ivy dilemma, where they basically made her pedo bait, or, you know, as Sweet Baby Inc would like to call her.
Wasn't expecting you to come in fun size.
Go ahead. Well, I was actually coming out here to pick up a cupcake and then go back home. There was, you know, nothing that was going to be sexual involved, because I'm not like that, you know. Well, obviously the text messages and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
But needless to say, man, the story, narrative, dialogue, anything and everything writing related with this game is complete dog shit, and overall, I don't think you're gonna find a more egregious example of just shit writing in the modern video game industry, especially the AAA industry, than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. There is nothing redeeming about this game's story whatsoever.
Worth it.
So let's go ahead and talk about the live service elements of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and overall how I think this game is going to just basically completely die off within the course of a few months, because there is no perceivable way that this game is going to survive the long haul when it comes to getting continuous content updates, especially as the player base will definitely dwindle from its already very small number at launch. But just as people realize how hollow, shallow, and overall unrewarding the gameplay loop of this game is just to engage with, there's nothing fun. I did not have fun once playing this game during the entire campaign and all the side activities I did to level up my characters along the way. So overall, I just don't see a world where this happens. Like, I can kind of see a semblance of how this game could have succeeded. They need to completely redo the mission structure. They need to make the combat a lot more engaging and fun and make you feel a lot more powerful. There needs to be better enemy variety. The actual loot that drops as a result of doing the side activities needs to be completely overhauled and actually give weapons and armor unique feels and aesthetics. Just, there's so much to be done with this game. I don't see how it can work. I mean, even if you look at something which the store is already present in this game, no fucking shock, but yeah, even the cosmetics in the store absolutely fucking suck, dude. Especially when you consider how Harley Quinn was nerfed so dramatically in the asset department.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer? Every night, I can feel my leg, and my arm, even my fingers. The everybody I've lost.
Like, it's a really bad sign that the core focus of your game, which is obviously the long-term monetization, is even lacking in addition to every other aspect of this game. This game just feels like a complete clusterfuck of people who have no idea how to make this type of game, and overall it just really shows because, you know, let's assume this game does get content for a season or two, okay? Well, unless they completely overhaul the mission structure, overhaul the combat, like, there's nothing fun here. Do you really want to go do 100 escort missions each season, play 100 versions of, you know, bootleg PvE domination, and, you know, collect the same guns over and over again with marginally better stats so you can go fight the same Justice League over and over again, labeled as a Brainiac boss fight for a total of 13 times? Like, does that sound fun to anyone? I mean, I just don't really see how this game can survive when most people aren't even interested in the underlying subject matter of this game. Like, I don't know why they picked the Suicide Squad of all fucking groups of characters out of the DC universe. What I would have done as a follow-up to the Arkham trilogy is have like maybe a 3-person co-op game where you play as Harley Quinn, Catwoman, and Poison Ivy, and it's like a 3-person co-op game, but has those like loot mechanics to it and seasonality elements to it, but you actually have like a traditional Rocksteady gameplay experience and use each of those characters' unique superpowers or fighting styles in order to take out enemies in that more traditional Rocksteady format. I think that actually could have worked if they would have taken their time with it and had a clear vision and actually had some good mission variety. But what's here is just a generic third-person shooter with absolutely nothing special about it whatsoever. It's a visual downgrade from Arkham Knight. It's not as fun as Arkham Knight. The looter-shooter mechanics that are there are fucking horrible. The seasonality is going to be the same rinse and repeat activities over and over again. The cosmetics that are already in the game fucking suck. So there's not really any promise here or any reason for anyone to get invested in this game for the long haul, unless you absolutely are obsessed with the Suicide Squad. But even then, the writing and just piss-poor narrative elements present in this game definitely leave a lot to be desired. I don't care how large of a fan you are of DC or the Suicide Squad in general. This shit is a complete and total failure of a live service game that I just don't see having any sort of legs in the long term. Because if you played this game, there's not really any way to expand the story any further. The only thing that's left is to basically go and fight Brainiac 12 more times while doing a bunch of generic activities in between those boss battles that you've already done 100 times over. There's not really room for expansion or delving deeper into the existing plot line. It's already done. The story is completely finished. They've already backed themselves into a corner. There's only one way this can play out unless they really abuse the bullshit multiverse plot element, which any comic book or anything that uses multiverses as a plot design is just lazy and incredibly boring in my opinion. So not really a great reflection either way, but it just feels like there's nowhere for this game to go but down. And overall, I think people are going to fall off more and more if there is anyone who's actually interested in this in the first place. So as a live service title, I think it completely fails in every single way imaginable and just has no foreseeable future in my personal opinion. I mean, if you're a fan of looter shooters, there is a million other games out there, which I know is an exaggeration, but there are so many better games out there that deserve your time in the third-person shooter genre that have the looter shooter elements than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It would be one thing if the actual core gameplay loop here was amazing, but it's not. It's completely generic. It's been done 100 times better, and overall, there's just really nothing to recommend about this game whatsoever. It just feels like another soulless AAA slop fest that was released to capitalize on a popular IP or go ahead and cut their losses on a game that was stuck in development hell for a very long time.
No!
Worth it.
So in conclusion, guys, should you play, experience, or dare I say buy Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? The answer I'm gonna have to give is absolutely not. There is nothing redeeming about this game whatsoever. It just feels like a complete and total failure in every single aspect imaginable. I can't think of one time I genuinely had fun playing it, one moment I actually enjoyed, or really anything memorable about it whatsoever. It was a struggle for me to to even remember what order I killed the Justice League in while making this review. So if that tells you anything, I don't know what does, because this game to me just screams soulless AAA filth that unfortunately has become the norm for Western AAA video game developers and is just another one to add to the list of disappointing live service releases in recent years. So overall, I would avoid this game like the fucking plague, and in all honesty, I think we have a real contender already just 1 month into the year for the worst game of 2024 when it comes to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And if I had to put a number on this, I would give it like a 3 out of 10. I think that's even being generous in some aspects, but for all intents and purposes, the game functions properly. The game may be shit, it may not be fun, the story may be terrible, but the game actually works for the most part. I did have a few technical hiccups here and there, like the game crashing or loading screens taking a very long time, but compared to the launch state of so many other AAA games in the modern gaming landscape, this is actually one of the better releases from a technical standpoint. So I think credit where credit is due is definitely deserved, but that's the only reason why it's not a 2 out of 10 in my book. This game is absolutely horrendous. 3 out of 10 I think is the best I could possibly do, and that's being overly generous in my mind. But yeah, do not buy this game. Don't waste your time. There's 100 other games in this particular genre that are much more deserving of your time, and I don't think you're going to be missing out on much by deciding to skip this game entirely. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League in the comment section below. Did you play it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? I'm interested to hear your take on this absolute dumpster fire in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like on it. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel recently, and I will catch you guys next time, hopefully talking about a much better game.